Welcome to another episode of the podcast. And it's mental. One thing in my life is, and I've spoken about, is a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise where it's just the thoughts, but it's also the physical noise where my phone, voice over, which is the screen reader, is a female voice. My computer is a male voice. My iPad is another one. So it's literally like these voices in my head, but they're not really in my head. They're in my headphones or in my devices, and they're constantly talking to each other, talking to me, and it drives me up the fucking wall. And to add to that noise, you might pick up on this, there's the pressure cooker, which is a very famous artifact in Indian households, which are used. And I'm sure if you ask some Indian, they're like, it's Indian pride, you bastard. You know what it does when pressure cooking a vegetable, or when you're pressure cooking a nut, it takes out all the things like lectins from the surface of the fruit or vegetable. So it is very good. It is now in Western practices, doctors have said that cooking like this, through pressure cooking, will make it nutritionful and all the bad things out. So, pressure cooking, the most fucking dangerous thing that you can ever use, man. It builds up pressure if that little whistle doesn't go off, or if that little thing on the top, whatever it's called, it's like a little nozzle, if it's blocked. I mean, it's happened twice in our house. Pressure cookers have burst, and it's just gone like a flying missile. But of course, it makes the dal taste amazing. I don't know. It does taste fucking amazing, I must admit. Or if, for instance, if you're cooking meat, you pressure cook the meat, apparently much more moist. You throw in some turmeric and curd, and you throw in some curry leaves, and you throw in ginger garlic, and it softens the meat. But it's a fucking death trap. I don't understand. And it startles the fuck out of you. We make everything in there. Rice, dal, lentils. That's what you call you people who've culturally appropriated our food. Nah. But it's a noisy thing. And it's a bit dangerous. I mean, of course, you have to get itself, like the gasket. It's got so many things. In fact, I almost feel like, shit, have I learned enough to pass on to the next generation? I don't know how a pressure cooker works. I mean, I know how it works, but like the rubber gasket, then you have that, what's that whistle thing called? The nozzle that you stick onto the top. And then you obviously, once it's done pressure cooking the food, you can't take it out instantly because the pressure has to release. And if you take it out instantly, poof, that's it. You have dal all over the place. And you're lucky if the lid blows off or something happens, because then the food sprays all over. And the worst case in that situation is that you have what? You have sprayed food. But if it doesn't, then the whole thing just transports like a missile. I'm telling you, this thing almost hit my fucking head about 12 years back. 13 years back, I was carrying my niece. I was just about entering the kitchen. I saw this boom, and this missile, and that's the fucking lunch, came at me. Fortunately, it didn't come at me because I would have got nailed. It came in my vicinity and hit the wall and bounced off. But can you imagine your lunch flying at you at high velocity, ready to take your fucking head off? And I was carrying my niece, and she was 2 at that point. It was a fucking scary experience. Yeah, now you wonder why, or now I wonder why my anxiety, it's all built up over the years. Pressure cooker, big contributor to my anxiety in life and stress. Fucking making noise, 5 whistles, 6 whistles, and if you're cooking something like a really sturdy goat, fucking 30 whistles. You don't cook goats at home. I can imagine, like, if you're someone in Pakistan, or, I don't know why I said Pakistan, because, I mean, yeah, of course Pakistan. I mean, they eat meat, they eat a lot of goat, because a lot of Muslims in India eat goat, and a lot of Pakistanis are Muslims. Hey, I'm not being culturally insensitive, you cunt. I'm just stating the obvious. Fucking everything, I have to watch my word. But imagine there's some, like, mountain goat, and they're like, oh, this one's really good, it's going to make us work for our meal. Fucking 400-500 whistles to get that thing even softened, and they put papaya. Look, it softens the meat. But why the fuck would you add things to make something more? I don't get it, dude. Sometimes I love Indian food. It's my the food from what I've eaten growing up. But sometimes I just get it. Like, you add this to take it out. Yeah, like, oh, it has the 4 elements. It has sweet, it has sour, it has spice, and it has salt or something like that. No, it has bitter, it has sweet, it has spice, and it has what? Sweet, sour, bitter, and spice. Yeah, so like my ladies. Not sour, fucking hell, that's an unwashed. But anyhow, dude, pressure cookers. You know, another thing which is really bugging me now is I've fallen back in love with the game of golf. I've told many of you who've heard this podcast that there's this thing coming up with blind golf, which is going to happen, in fact, sooner than later. It's scary, and yours truly might be playing a bigger part in it than I imagined. But you know, when I went to this club called the Wellington Club in Ooty, it's near Kunur, in fact. When I was 7 or 8, I saw this think my eyes were fine then, just before they went bad. I saw this yellow golf ball and a stick, and I was like, what is this magical thing where you hit it and it goes hole to hole? I fell in love with it. The next year went back, and it was just, every summer we'd go there because Wellington's up in the hills, and it was a beautiful place and a beautiful time to go, and it was very British back then, like your tea was served, and I've spoken about this, tea cozy, and Anthony was the waiter who would serve tea. The tea service was lovely, and I think the next year we went back, and again, that was my time. The only time I would get a chance to hold a golf club. And when I came back home, I would take a hockey stick, some of my cousin's old hockey stick, take a tennis ball, pretend it was a golf club and ball, and hit it. But I'd go back there. I'm like, oh, Robert, he was the caddy master, and he was like, oh, here comes a little sprightly young fucker. And I would take a golf stick and hit it. And the second or third holiday we would do that consecutive years, I hit someone on the head. Hey, yeah. But anyhow, he's fine, I suppose, even if not, fuck it. And then at the age of 14, I think I picked it up at KJ. KJ is the Karnataka Golf Association. I started a student membership program so I could play because my parents weren't members of the golf club. Hey. And I started. And anyway, I realized I played bad golf a long time. And it's not because of my eyes. I just couldn't get the swing right. I never went for official coaching. I think I went for 2 classes. I think every caddy who helped me was my coach. And every friend who played with me was my other coach. So literally, I was caught between 30 different points and bits of advice. Pretty much my life. Just everyone's like, yo, we think you're good at this. I think I'm good at what you said you think I'm good at. But I'm now revisited the game. I've been off it for almost 6-7 years because my sight has gotten worse and I couldn't see the ball. And I was also about hitting the ball if you can't see it. But, man, the feel. And now I think my swing's in a much better place. But the thing with golf is the moment you discover that you can do something right, you discover about 200 other things that you're doing wrong. So I got my grips right. I got my grip is in the process of getting right. My stance is getting better. My posture is getting better. But then I realized my backswing is not feeling right. So I kept fucking up yesterday. Hit about, my God, that's gas. 250 balls. And I got getting tired. My hands are getting tired. But, it's one of those things. You can't live with it. You can't live without it. But I came back home and I was like angry with the fact that it wasn't going well. But I started thinking about it again. So that means you like doing it. And the same thing with the guitar. I'm like, I wish I could play this, but maybe I'm better at golf than I'm at the guitar. So, but yeah, it's a fascinating game. Just the feel of it. And I can't see the ball at all when I address it. I mean, I figured out ways now, making things more predictable, right? My grip has a mark on it, so I'm able to align without seeing. My stance gives me a sense of where the club is between my feet, so I kind of align it depending on which club I'm using. If you're not a golfer, then this probably fucking bores the fuck out of you. I apologize. So you have different length in the golf clubs. You have it from a driver all the way up to a wedge, or if you're all the way down to a wedge, depending on the length, and it goes up in loft. This is a little golf 101. And you keep it, your wedges start in the middle between your legs. It goes further towards your left foot if you're a right-hander, and further towards your right foot if you're a left-hander. And these various things happen. And you have to find that. It's just about mechanics. It's about finding what position suits your stance and the club you're playing with. And that just takes some time. So many golfers do this on their own, but since I need someone to spot it for me, they're like, no, you're doing wrong grip. And I'm like, oh, fucking get a pressure cooker. So grip is getting sorted out. Grips are sorted out, and the physical grips on the clubs are sorted out. I realized that my swing has a natural fade, which I was trying to fight for many years. And I asked a guy, he's a guy at the fitting shop, and he's a pro. He said, it's fine. Most professionals, in fact, try to hit a draw or a fade. Because I'm like, what the fuck? You're telling me this after 20 years or 24 years of trying, 30 years of playing golf or whatever, since I was first introduced, 14 years since I was first probably playing golf. But apparently you can. And the problem is you hit bad shots, then you're like, then you go on YouTube and you're like, oh, fucking Bryson DeChambeau, you're doing this, and you say the DeChambeau swing or the one plane swing and all these things fucks with your head, man. And then suddenly, you're like, dinner's ready. But I think I'm figuring out what I need to do with my swing and what I want from my swing and what I wanted from the game of golf. I think that's the most important thing. I'm able to get out. In fact, I hit it as a workout sometimes, 250 balls. Trust me, you had 200 balls with the driver, man, you are sweating and you feel good. You feel worked out. Then I come back, have a hot shower, have my beers, and I'm feeling good. So not all is lost, is what I'm trying to say. Anyhow, that's a little recap of my week and what's going on in my life. I hope you guys are well and you're passing on the joy and the joys. was going to say something dirty, but why? No need to, right? But yeah, Omicron is all over the place. We're just trying to avoid getting it because my wife, I almost spilled the beans, but no. We're all good. Yeah, and we're just chilling and everything's fine. And a lot of people we know have got Omicron. But yeah, it's one of those things, I suppose. What? Everyone's inevitably going to get it. Fuck it. People who say inevitably in a very casual conversation are usually inevitably people you don't hang out with. Or inevitably in your face. I don't know why. But it's just one of those things, dude. You got to figure out whether you want it and don't impose and don't blow fucking spittle in someone's face going, hey, I told you, it means nothing. 3 days of fever, 5 days of quarantine, be out after that. You know what you should do? Put that fucker in a pressure cooker and just poof, one whistle. Don't let the cap go off. I hope I didn't puff in your ears, my friend. But yeah, it's 2022. And I have a guest on today's episode, as always. Her name is Neesa. I hope I get the last name right. Suncheuri. She has an interesting story. She reached out to me a few months back. It was for actually Life Gone Wrong, the podcast which I was doing for Spotify. And she's a mental health practitioner. She also does have a disorder that she's coping with. Her story is, quite, it's moving. It's quite sad and at points what she's been through in her life, like the way, her family, like her parents. She'll tell you about it, and just giving you a heads up of what you can expect, and just the experiences she's been through and how she's trying to help people through what she's gone and kind of give back. So I think it's interesting. If you are someone who's probably dealt with anxiety or stress or depression in some shape or form, you might. Some of the things she says might strike a chord with you. It also might, evoke certain emotions. So yeah, give it a listen. She's an interesting person. She's reached out and we had a chat. As it was early in the morning, so I do sound a little clogged and a little hungover, just to put that out there. But as always, one must commit and one must stick to what he or she believes in, and that's what I bring to you on the SoapyRao show. So, without further ado, enjoy the conversation. And as always, I really appreciate you listening to what I put out. So thanks. As always, goodbye. God bless. Cheers. And see you on the other side. Neesa Suncheuri, welcome to the SoapyRao show. How are you this morning, this evening, wherever we may be sitting?
I'm good. I'm excellent. I'm glad to be here.
Lovely. Thanks so much for agreeing to join me on the podcast. And we've been in touch for a few months on the digital email. But how are things? You're sitting in Queens, New York. How are things there? I keep hearing on various podcasts that New York is never going to be the same. But is it okay?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Well, Queens is a lot more chill. I love Queens. I'm born and raised here.
Uh-huh.
I've traveled, of course, but I love it here. It's, there's still the benefits of this kind of progressive treatment relatively, in mental health. And but it's just a lot more relaxed here. I live in Jamaica, Queens. Okay. So it's like southeastern Queens. And because the city is more west. So it's just a lot more.
This is more, I've never been to Queens. I've been to Brooklyn. I've been to that one big road called Broadway. I'm joking.
Oh, yeah.
But no, Queens is north, right? Is Queens north or is it?
Well, there's kind of Manhattan, which is this, I guess, arrow pointing downwards. And then to the east of that, you have Long Island, which is, kind of, they say it's in the shape of a fish. Anyway, you have Brooklyn kind of is to the closest to Manhattan, although part of Queens goes up along the East River as well. And then Queens goes out further east than Brooklyn. And then at the border of Queens, that's the end of New York City. And then you have two other counties, Nassau County and then Suffolk County.
Okay. I read about these in books. I've heard that they exist. And then you have the ocean.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So what brought, you said you were born and brought up but
Yeah,
your family moved there, or were you ever in India at any point?
I mean, I have been to India. I will mention that. No, my father is from Nepal,
Okay. Oh,
and
fantastic.
and my mother is from New York,
Okay.
like part Italian, part Hungary and Slovakia, stuff like that.
So you got it all.
So
That's you
yeah,
got a bit of
yeah,
the
my
subcontinent. You got a bit of the old continent or the new continent,
yeah,
depending on where you're from.
yeah.
Fantastic. So your parents are now with you in Queens.
Well, my parents divorced. My mother is, close to me. My father's not really in my life anymore, but
Okay.
yeah. So my mother lives in the area where I grew up. I grew up in Bayside. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah. And my dad, I don't know. He's out in the island somewhere. So
Okay. As long okay, he's there somewhere. Okay.
yeah.
Now, I mean, what I find, that you told me that you're now very immersed in the space of mental health.
Hmm.
So, can you talk about that journey, if you're comfortable with it, of what brought you um, to help people because of your own personal experience? Because just before we got recording, you told me about this whole experience you had with this guru and this group. Let's call it a
Hmm.
group, not a guru, or whatever the name may be.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
easily interchangeable, I suppose, nowadays. But what was your
Hmm.
experience with it? Because you seem to have come a long way, and the fact that you're helping people is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, to preface that experience that, that you're referring to, I'll just quickly summarize that my childhood was difficult because of like tension in my home, to put it lightly,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
discord in the home, which really, I guess I'm a sensitive and empathetic person, which I realize now as a therapist. But being in that environment, it was very, very loud, to say the least. It
Mm.
made me very, very depressed.
So one
Um,
second, sorry,
yeah,
okay, I'm going to let you know before we
sure,
think.
yeah, yeah.
I do interrupt a lot. I'm a bit of a
No, it's
chatterbox and
okay. No,
curious as
that's
well.
fine. Yeah.
Now, the reason I interrupted here is this word you mentioned. Things were very loud, right?
Hmm.
And I'm in this place right now, and I think in one of these situations, whether it's depression, anxiety, I don't think it's interchangeable.
Hmm.
What do you call that when you say the situations, right? But I think there are certain circumstances which you can say, hey, even though backgrounds and family upbringing and relationships are
Hmm.
so different, there are certain symptoms, or there's certain environmental situations which are like, whether it's like, for instance, whether it's passive aggression, or
Hmm.
whether it's things like, relationships which are not, where there's no communication, whether it's with the parents or the siblings, which
Yeah,
could
yeah.
evoke these emotions. So that's why I was very intrigued when you said loud. What did you mean? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. I'm trying to like downplay the severity of my experience.
Okay.
I mean,
Hey,
just
by the way,
to,
if it's troubling to you to talk about it, please
yeah.
don't
No,
hesitate.
no,
You
no,
don't have
it's
to.
fine. I can, yeah. Um, I mean, I do have some unique insight into my definition of loud.
Hmm.
Definitely like screaming, is very distressing to experience. But I also, my grandparents, they were, they helped me a lot. Theirs was like a safe home. It was a safe place for me to, where I felt safe. At home,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't feel safe. But they listen to a lot of conservative radio, and it's just like very like this piercing sound, and
Ooh,
they're
yeah.
old, so they don't hear well, so it's very loud.
Gosh,
This
I
was
can
very
totally
irritating. Yeah.
feel you on
And I'm
that
on the
one.
floor playing with my little toys, and the radio is right next to me screaming, and and like I just blocked this out. It was
Mm,
normal. Um, and I would say also I'm pretty sensitive to sound in general, because
mm,
when I was around 5 years old, I started playing the violin.
right.
Um, and my family, they enrolled me in a very good Suzuki school, like a violin. Suzuki education it's a method of teaching that emerged in the, I guess, early, like mid 1900s
Okay,
by a pedagogue, Shinichi Suzuki. So it's
right.
internationally known. So I went to a good Suzuki
And
school, and
that
I
was
played.
a more heavier focus on music in that form of teaching, like, because certain
Yeah,
I'm not sure of
it
Suzuki, but I've heard of
yeah.
different teachings that use materials which are more tactile, more auditory?
No, it's not like a general school. It's just a music school.
Okay, so okay,
It's just a
okay.
music
It's
school.
not like
Yeah.
Montessori or any of those things.
No, no, no,
Okay,
no, no.
okay,
It's just
okay.
music. Yeah. So I took violin lessons and I was good. I learned very
Mm,
quickly. I was, kept up with the advanced kids, my age and but when you're practicing music, I've finally discovered this in its entirety now as an adult. When you're a kid living it, it's very difficult.
mm,
But I never, both at my home and my grandparents' place, there was never an opportunity where I really had privacy, where I could be in my own space and practice music and focus on the music and not either fear not being watched or being judged, or being interrupted or
mm.
criticized. Like I never had that space to
So
practice.
music, you always felt like was something that you were expected to do to perform for others as opposed to a sense of solace for yourself.
Um, it's strange to say. I had the potential to be very studious, but my family actually didn't support me enough. They paid for lessons. They drove me there. My grandfather was a musician himself, retired, so he liked watching my lessons. But the Suzuki method is they talk about hands-on education,
Uh-huh.
very much like parents are very involved in the child's development, bringing them to concerts,
Right, right.
practicing with the child at home, also paying for everything,
Mm-hmm.
paying for the instrument and the everything, all the lessons, driving you, I mean, they did that for me, but in comparison to my classmates, I really did not receive that support,
Mm,
other than just being driven places. My family didn't support me in my practice, and the other kids, they had that, and I still kept up with them.
mm. Okay,
So
okay.
I think the only difficulties were that my posture, my technique was a bit flawed, because no one helped me like they're supposed to. My grandfather didn't like the Suzuki method because he was old school. He was born in 1915, you know,
Okay.
and he had gone to Juilliard out of high school in like 1933, but then he dropped out after a year because he had to earn money for his family.
Oh, okay,
So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
so
That,
it was like Great Depression, this time period. So
yeah, yeah.
and he was a gigging musician on the weekends, but
Sorry, which
at,
instrument did he play? Did he play the violin
he
as
played
well?
piano. No,
Uh-huh.
he played piano when he was young, but as a musician gigging, he played tenor sax and clarinet.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but his perspective on music also was that, like, he didn't really like Suzuki method from what I know. It
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, if a kid is focused, they'll do it themselves. But it's just that
Mm.
the times are very different now. Now when I was growing up, like TV was ubiquitous, and video games were ubiquitous. So I
Yeah.
feel in retrospect, I wasted a lot of energy and time being addicted to TV
Yeah,
and
yeah,
this
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
thing, and
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm in
yeah.
the same boat as you with that one because I was like, oh my God, like if I had literally committed to whether it's a musical instrument or whether
Mhm.
it's a skill I'm trying to build, if I spend the same amount of time I spent watching, Captain Planet or Teenage
Yeah,
Mutant Ninja
right.
Turtles or some of those
Mhm.
shows, I mean, I did the same amount of partying, but I think if I spent the same amount committed, I think we could have easily picked up new languages or new skills or whatever people
Oh, geez. Yeah.
take hours doing or years doing.
Hmm. Yeah.
No, but so I want to understand this idea, right? So um, because right now you are a mental health practitioner, you help people who
Hmm.
are going through these situations with their
Definitely. Yeah.
lives, right? But
Hmm.
no, it's important what you said the other time because I think it's one of those things I'm experiencing. Uh, with mental health, a lot of things make sense in hindsight. When you look
Hmm.
back, you're like, oh yeah, that was something which wasn't good for me, or
Yeah.
that relationship was toxic, or that
Yeah.
that kind of influence was unhealthy for me. But the fact that you're talking about your childhood, you're talking about the influence of music, but for you, you said you developed schizophrenia, which is which most people, including myself, uh, we don't understand what it involves, right? Because
Hmm.
it's portrayed in movies as just something as basic as split personality, but I think it's more complex than that. So if you're comfortable talking about it, when did that begin for you? And what is it sort of to educate lay people like us? What does it manifest as?
Yeah. So I was in college. My music making in childhood, it did develop, and I eventually went to the conservatory at Indiana University.
Hmm.
They have a prominent school there. And when I was there, I was still struggling with the clinical depression. I could not practice for more than an hour because when I practiced, I would cry, just these
Okay.
tears. And this was a problem that started in childhood in my upbringing due to my surroundings.
So then every
Um,
time you played with your practice your instrument, played with this music,
yeah,
it would bring out this
the
sense of,
crying. And that's not the schizophrenia. That was just
no, I mean the depression.
pre-existing
I mean the,
depression.
but
Yeah.
is that something which has been in your family? Like what is I mean, now looking back,
No, nobody
was
in
it the
my family's
situation?
depressed. It was just my upbringing. It
That's
was pretty
crazy.
bad.
That's really
Yeah.
sad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's complicated, and family details and this sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Um, but anyway, when I was in college, it was very, very eye-opening because I realized that, yeah, I had wasted a lot of time playing games. But the thing was, the games helped me cope with my upbringing. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like,
yeah,
so it's not like I feel shame about that because it helped me survive. It helped me stay happy. If I didn't have a TV, I would have, just the kids at schools teasing me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
This
yeah,
stupid
yeah.
stuff. I mean, whatever. But
Yeah, a lot of
when
elements in childhood, they seem like, oh, my childhood was the best. In fact, if you look at it, what are your options, right? Like sometimes when people talk about today's day and age, the kids nowadays have it hard. It's social media. I'm like, it's actually sometimes fun because what did we have, right? Besides, I mean, if
yeah,
you take away certain things which were fun, like maybe playing with your friends or maybe playing with Lego,
yeah,
other things like what? They made fun of you.
yeah.
They tripped you on the playground. It's not too many elements
Yeah,
which
and
are
that was
great.
all you had. That was your
Yeah.
world. Like if the people in your immediate life were
Were
not
not cool, then
not
it's not a
that
really
you
good
had
experience.
nothing.
You had
Yeah.
nothing,
Now
yeah.
with the internet, you can meet people
You can
beyond that.
escape, which is not a good
Exactly.
thing, but if you don't have anything at home to look forward to, then
Hmm.
escape is your only sort of thing you can resort to, right?
Exactly. I
Yeah.
totally
Now,
feel
I
that
want
way.
to talk about that if you're okay later about what your perception of what's going on now is, but I want to hear your story
Sure,
about.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when I got to conservatory, I mean, there were top musicians there who had really had that elite training. They had
Hmm.
cooperative parents who nurtured that elite level of training. And when I really had a heartbreaking wake up call when I realized, like, I didn't have those years of preparation.
Okay. Okay.
And then, and not to say that, I felt just constantly that I was playing catch up. And also I couldn't practice beyond a certain amount of time because again, the crying would get to me. And also the social environment at Indiana. I mean, the music school itself is very large. It's got maybe 2,000 people or so,
Hmm.
a very
Hmm.
big school. And, many people, many Europeans, many, East Asians, folks from South America, um, and Americans. So, it's a very liberal, politically liberal environment, but it's interesting also because the area of Bloomington was fairly conservative at the time. So you
Hmm.
had this interesting kind of political and cultural dynamic that you don't really find on the East Coast as much, at least, the East Coast conservatories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm from New York, so I was there, and just this notion of everybody starting dating and pairing up. I'm like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I'm pretty independent minded. So I think I just kind of this cultural clash with my personal nature versus and also the despair. I was realizing that I was behind compared to others, and that I couldn't play catch up as much as I wanted because of the depression. That really threw me into this sort of existential crisis. Like, why am I here? Why am I playing music? Am I just playing because I want to win first chair of the orchestra, and I see somebody get first chair or win a competition, I get jealous and angry, and I was like, this is pointless. Like, why am I playing music? Why?
Hmm.
Um, and my mother had been into meditation for a few years, and she was reporting how it helped her. So it was at the end of my junior year. This is 2006. I encountered a musician at the school who told me about this meditation practice he did, that he liked it. And there was a gathering at a yoga studio, later that day. And I went, and you just close your eyes and do whatever. So, and I was like, I want to join.
Yeah.
And I got involved with this group. They call themselves Natural Path Meditation. It's actually, it's called Sahaj Marg meditation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to join, and they invited me to become initiated. The group is called Sahaj Marg. It translates to easy path from what they say.
Oh, anything easy isn't a good
sign. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, the group was affiliated with a guru in Chennai.
So this was all in Indiana, right?
This was in Indiana.
Okay,
not in India.
I thought India. Yeah, I got confused.
No, I did go to India.
Oh, you did? Okay, you did come here.
I did.
Okay.
I
okay.
did. Yeah.
From Indiana to India. Okay, cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and I wanted to join this group because I wanted a spiritual practice, and the people were nice, of course.
And it makes sense, right? When you're feeling such emotions, you want to hear someone saying, "Hey, there are people who can help," right? You
right.
Kind of you want to rely on someone. You need a foundation. And I'm just talking from a place of I completely understand what you were feeling, because you want someone or some group that can be like, hey, we'll guide you through this because we've been through it. It's not easy, but we have some tips which can help you cope with your situation. And they
didn't really even say, hey, we're going to help you. It was more like, this is master's practice. Let's do it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But I did feel a strong sense of community, because at the music school, I didn't feel socially like I fit in. I didn't have friends. I lived alone.
Yeah.
In rooming houses or what have you. And I'd show up to rehearsals, I'd play, I'd practice and cry, I'd go home, and I didn't hang out with anyone. So, and I felt rejected at school, and nobody was outright rejecting me. Not at all. It was, but I didn't feel like I fit in. So with the meditation group, a lot of it, it was families, mostly Indian families.
Yeah.
And the meditation practice, with the guru, I'll just describe the crux of it. Essentially there's they have the belief that the master has this divine energy, and he, through a process called transmission, during meditation sessions, if there's a group session, this meditation is always led by a preceptor, who is a person who has personally encountered the master, who has been attuned by the master to, I suppose, be a conduit where this energy can flow through the preceptor into the abhyasi, the people. And this is like divine food, or what have you, spiritual food that, when you meditate, with the preceptor, you receive it. And then when you meditate on your own every day, you're digesting this food, and it makes you more enlightened. So
you're getting more of the stuff that he is giving through his conduits to.
Yeah, right. Essentially. Yeah. So, and this is all very eye-opening, being introduced to like Eastern-based spirituality. I found a lot of, comfort, wisdom, a lot of answers. And it was a nice way of life. And I still feel, Eastern inclined. My father's from Nepal, so it's part of my heritage as well. So sorry,
you said this preceptor would give you stuff from his or her experience with this guru in Chennai. What kind of stuff was it? Was it like breathing practices? Was it like a stuff to chant?
No, I mean, it was, the practice was like, aside from when you meditate, whether it's with the preceptor or by yourself in the morning, they want you to meditate and imagine this like divine white light in the heart or something.
Okay.
And then in the evening, when you meditate, you imagine the samskara leaving your back in the form of smoke and vapor, like the negative things you absorb, and bad karma and all this stuff. And then at night, before bed, you're basically repeating a prayer to yourself, like basically worshiping the master.
Mm.
and they encourage this practice called constant remembrance, basically thinking about the master all the time. So
What do you know the person's name? Are you allowed to talk
it
about it?
was he died, but it was Partha Sarat Rajagopalachari.
Okay, I haven't heard of him. Okay, okay. And that was in Madras in Chennai.
It was in Chennai. He had the ashram in Chennai.
Okay, right, right, right.
Oh,
So, but did it help you? Because
yeah. I mean, the thing was, it gave me a lot of food for thought in terms of contemplating enlightenment and this sort of thing. It's interesting though, like we would have meditation sessions, but then when they after the meditation, they have the reading from the master.
uh-huh.
And it was like, I don't like what he's saying. Like this is not like I'm not finding inspiration.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and like there were videos of him, and he has this way of talking. It kind of reminded me of my dad, which wasn't good. So
Mm, mm.
and if you look online, there's all this like cults, bad stories about whatever. But it's interesting, like as a person with, a diagnosis or what have you, um, besides the, debilitating effects of that, it is, I've come to learn that I'm a pretty like intuitive person. So by doing the practice, not even by reading literature necessarily, but just experiencing the practice and having conversations with other people who are doing it, that's how I learned about kind of Eastern spirituality in a sense. Was I was
Yeah,
seeing it, I was doing it.
yeah,
The readings were auxiliary
yeah.
in my opinion,
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I joined this group and it gave me purpose, which actually pulled me away from my musical focus, but it gave me, like I said, it gave me purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so you said that, but that sort of that joining that group brought out the schizophrenia in you.
Yeah.
In how
So,
was like what do you what was that feeling like?
yeah. So I had been doing the meditation practice for a full year, and I incidentally I had been taking medication, and then I went off my medication with the supervision of a psychiatrist,
Yeah.
saying the meditation was helping. And that I went off like May 2007, just giving a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So then after May 2007, like my thoughts started getting really scattered,
Okay.
and I had never had schizophrenia before, so I had no idea what was going on. So like I
Mm.
was, I had a crush on some musician, and I was thinking about this person constantly. This
Mm.
is like codependency, I realized, because I've done it, other times in my life too.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about this person constantly, and then I went to Texas for 6 weeks in the summer to play in an orchestra festival. I'm constantly thinking about this person. And then after the festival in Texas, I flew to India. I went to Tirupur
Right.
in Tamil Nadu because there was a gathering with the master, and there was like supposedly 50,000 Abhyasis from around the world, and it was like
Mm.
the celebrating his 80th birthday. He's seen 1,000 full moons, this sort of thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So there was this gathering in India, and I went there, and and the he came out. The actual event was like 3 days, but there was people there for a month or whatever, and
Mm.
they had built this whole like temporary city out of like aluminum, siding and whatever. So I
Yeah.
was there, and I traveled to India by myself, but I met up with friends from my area. So
Okay.
yeah. So meditating in the presence of the master, I was still obsessing about this person. It was so stupid. And but also it was just like arriving at India, it's very different from the other side of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
was very hot. It was very hot. And the sun was a lot brighter because of the sun. It's closer to the equator, so the sun is very bright from
Mm.
what I was used to, and it had a different, like it's interesting. Like part of my experience too, whatever you want to call it, is that different environments, when you're traveling around the world, I'm sure many people feel this way. The air feels different, the spirit of the air feels different.
Mm.
So it was, and then kind of in the presence of the master with the meditation, it was again, the air was like spiritual in a sense.
And you felt that. You
Yeah,
felt it. Okay.
I did.
Okay.
And I felt it, especially like in the moment you feel it, but then afterwards, when you're walking around, you feel blissed out.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, it is, but it's okay. Okay. So what happened was I was in India and I did this meditation. Then I returned home.
Mm.
And the time leading up to this, it was like I took India home with me.
Mm.
And I was still in this state, but I was also in love with this musician at
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
And we were in the same small orchestra together. And I actually had managed to have a fling with him previously, but which didn't go well. And his when I returned to school, it happened that I was still obsessed about him, and his friends didn't like me for whatever reason. They just didn't like me.
Yeah.
And it was this battle in myself, like knowing these people hate me for being eccentric, what have you. And then, but liking this person, you know, and I started, so I started getting angry. And in rehearsal, I'm imagining myself like stabbing this person with knives because I hate this situation. And, you know,
Ooh,
and I was very scared. So
yeah.
I took myself to the therapist at Indiana, at IU. They have a big medical building.
Yeah.
It's like the health center on the 4th floor. There's a mental health section. And I went there frequently. So I went there. I reported myself. I was like, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt this person. You know, I'm thinking about knives. And like, they asked me again, like, do you think you're going to hurt this person? And it was just, I had been obsessing about this person in a codependent manner for the entire summer. And to the point that it was not even an enjoyable experience. I wasn't thinking even of this person, even sexually. It was just the obsession of the presence of the person. And, you know,
Yeah, it must be quite frustrating, right? Because I'm sure at some point you're like, I don't want to think about this person, but
right. Yeah. I think that's the basis, my basis for like why guru worship has been appealing to me is like that, you know, you want this figurehead to worship.
yeah.
And you haven't found something that works, and like worshiping a partner or worshiping a crush, or you know, and trying to derive spiritual benefit from that kind of worship. It's a horrible experience.
And you know, I think that there are a lot of people who go through that. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people who want that. I mean, I wouldn't say want it, but maybe they, I mean, maybe they don't need it, but they want it. That, you know, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, or whether it's a cult, or whether it's some kind of guru. And what's so sad is that these things are teachings from a point to help people, right? To be independent at the same time, to serve compassionately, whether it's Buddhist traditions, Tibetan Buddhist traditions, or you know, Far East traditions or Indian traditions. It's to, while it's to you know, you use the help of a guru to lead you down. You know, because some of these things are very powerful teachings. So people who've gone down the path earlier will show you a way of doing it without hurting yourself or without going down too deep.
Yeah.
But many people use that position of knowledge to exploit people, knowing that there are people out in the world who need this sense of worshipping someone, but you don't need it actually. But they use that, which is very sad.
I think there is a benefit to the proper guru worship. You know, like I still feel drawn. There's a guru I follow mildly. I'm not part of her posse or anything. You know, Amma, the guru, the hugging saint.
I've heard, but I don't know enough about her.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like totally invested in like going to the ashram and the meetings and all this stuff. Cause you know, I did that already, I feel, but, you know, like I do find peace at times to, you know, have a living example of, you know, of, self-realization, this sort of thing.
I think it's amazing to have someone, especially like, I think with anything, right? With music, if someone knows more than you, I think for them to share, you know, these kind of practices help. Similarly, I think with spirituality, I think someone saying, you know, I've been down this, I think spend some more time on this. But the problem is in today's day and age where you have, you know, the internet, and you have people who are more lost and scared with not being, you know, who they are. They're scared of looking at themselves going, am I the right kind of person? Am I going to be accepted? And then you throw all these various other ingredients into the mix. And then you throw this person who comes out going, hey, I'm going to guide you. It's a
Oh,
bit,
geez.
yeah,
Yeah,
a bit
yeah.
scary.
Yeah. And then it's like,
Potential for
oh,
scare. Yeah.
exactly. It's like, I'm going to guide you. Oh, we met, it was fated. We were meant to meet,
Yeah.
join a, yeah, this sort of
Yeah.
thing.
No, but so what? Okay. So in a nutshell, I mean, I don't want to take away from,
Hmm.
something as significant as schizophrenia, and I don't want you
Yeah.
to talk about it in a nutshell. But
Hmm.
so besides this obsessive behavior,
Yeah.
what
So
else did you feel? Because it seems like
I'm
quite an
actually
intense
leading to,
experience.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
leading to the pivotal point. So when I took myself to the psychiatrist, they asked me, like, do you think you'll hurt him?
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the thing is, if I am a danger to him, they have to, notify people in,
Yeah.
so I was so scared, and I just started, I confessed, like, yes. And I was just crying all of this, pent up obsession. And I felt like it was like somebody punched me in the gut. It felt like,
Yeah.
and I felt like as if I lost a baby, like just
Ouch.
bitter crying. So, and then after I finished crying, I felt this euphoria. It was like I was in India again, and
Mm.
I walked around, and the trees are like bright, um and just the wind is just like, whoa, like, not that I was high or anything, but it was just, and then from that point, then I started having these feelings like, oh, items, everything's talking to me, there's subliminal messages everywhere, this sort of thing. And
And nothing on substances. It's just
no,
normal day.
no,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I did my own research. I mean, I feel that I had an uncontrolled Kundalini awakening.
Okay. Okay.
This, you know what I mean
Yeah.
by
I've heard
that?
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, this, it's something that, like, intense meditation or spiritual practice can kind of trigger this.
Hmm.
Typically, like, a Kundalini awakening is advised, to be done with a guru or practitioner who knows what they're doing and this sort of thing. But with the uncontrolled awakening, which is, I think, what happens to a lot of people who have mental illness,
Yeah.
this kind of uncontrolled awakening, um, it has a slew of side effects,
Yeah.
including psychosis.
Okay.
And I actually felt it. I mean, it's no, Kundalini is like this energy in the spine,
Yeah.
this serpent, and I felt it. I felt it up and down my spine, and it felt very powerful. And this, and the psychosis and the things that I was thinking, it was all very fixated on the spiritual, subliminal messages in, everywhere. And it's just,
So it
yeah.
wasn't like bad things. It was a sense of bliss, you said, right?
No, I mean, it's interesting. Like, bliss, I feel they talk about bliss as this, like, in the spiritual destination that you want to get to, where you're happy all the time. But I feel also at the same time, it's non-duality. So is bliss happiness and sad? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
is bliss happiness? Or is bliss non-duality?
Yeah.
So I guess it was a blissful experience, but it was also, my mind was not, I don't know. I'm trying to describe
Yeah.
these
No, because
complex things. Yeah.
yeah, no, because the thing is, we're sort of taught to think that there are certain ways that are accepted as normal, functioning
Hmm.
members of society who are productive, responsible, who are various roles, right? If you want to call it that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But was this that kind of departure from that, saying, okay, I'm no longer a functioning member, that makes me feel different? Or is this the sense that I'm, because, we use these words like, oh, look at him, look at her, she's so spaced out, she's so
Hmm.
different, she's such a hippie, she's so groovy, whatever these words are, right?
Yeah.
Was it that way, like people made you feel different, or did you feel that there's something like that there's something taking you in different directions where you're not able to be the sort of role that people are expecting you to play? At the same time, you're not
Yeah.
able to be comfortable with yourself. So what do you mean? I mean, not what do you mean, but what were you feeling besides this? Because from what you're telling me, like this sense of perception that everything's cleaner, smells better, the wind is better, it it feels like a good thing. It's
Yeah.
like,
Well, but the
yeah.
thing is that it was, I guess it was, I mean, I felt also more emotionally volatile.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
was very like I was in this constant state of mania where just, a little glance from somebody had an evil aura, and then all of a sudden I hate
Ooh.
things, and I
Right,
go
right, right,
home
right,
and
right.
I rip out everything in my closet, I throw it on the floor, and then I'm too depressed to clean it up, so it's just a mess for,
Oh, it led to that. Okay, okay. I didn't. Okay,
yeah,
okay. That.
yeah,
Okay.
and just crying, bawling.
And you feel that particular experience in at the thing you went for, the birthday celebration, was this uncontrolled awakening which made you so sensitive to your
Yeah.
surroundings and emotion. Okay.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that like any of my perceptions in a practical sense were based in any sort of reality.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, yeah, in higher spiritual, teachings or what have you, like, I'm not an expert by any means, but for example, like Native American cultures, there's this idea that like, there's a spirit in trees and this sort of thing. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm interpreting this piecemeal knowledge I have. I'm not an expert, but my mind is, treating this stuff as like, oh, now this tree is alive and is my best friend, and this person looked at me for 3 seconds, so they're evil, so now they have to die, and I'm going to play my viola. That was another thing, like the kundalini energy in my body. I feel like it's actually very bad to do, but I was pushing it around in my body. I was trying to push it into the viola and then make this
Mm,
magic music, and like, so when I was practicing, I wasn't crying anymore, so I thought it was a miracle. And then it was like music became this sort of yoga, and I was pushing the energy into the music, and I
okay.
kept journals. I still have them, like, and I would write my musings about, and I read it now, and from what I remember, and it was just nonsense, you know. So
It's such a um, interesting time to talk about these things because you hear of so many people who are kind of lost. They've lost sort of this sorry this idea of what reality with the real world is. I mean, so-called real world, right? With
yeah.
the prescribed way of living, whether it's with work, or whether it's with family, or whether it's with identity. And
Hmm.
they obviously seek the beyond, which is this deeper, wiser learnings from the past.
Hmm.
And with the internet, you have access to so much more. Earlier, you had to go find the right teacher, you had to find the right school or the right group. But now you can just pick up, to start with, YouTube videos on, say, spirituality and meditation and
Hmm.
whatever the teachings you want to find, you can find them. But what you're telling me, like, it's so important to do it properly, because, like, even now
Yeah.
you hear of ayahuasca, you hear of these various things like doing mushrooms, which are now being experimented, like with people using it on mental health,
Yeah, right.
patients with post-traumatic
Hmm.
stress. It's terrifyingly powerful. That's what we don't know. And earlier, like you spoke about Native American group, like the shaman would initiate certain people, but that would take years of preparation. But
Yeah,
now
exactly.
you can just literally say, okay, I have $5,000. I'm going to go down to this resort in Florida and do a week of ayahuasca, which is it's
uh,
so scary because that can
yeah.
release things in you, and we are chemical beings, and if we're
Hmm.
not prepared for it, it can create havoc in
Yeah,
our minds and bodies, right?
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that, like, based on what I've experienced, I feel like the internet, or the ease of information to access that we can access now, you can just read higher teachings on the internet and be like, oh, I want that, and it's like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
it's like a glass ceiling, a
yeah.
lot of people think, oh, I'm going to achieve enlightenment in this lifetime. I've felt that way, you know
Yeah, yeah.
because you can see the higher teachings. The internet has made this very available to us,
No, and you can
where
actually,
you can
I'm totally on
yeah.
the same page as you on that one, because sometimes we're like, am I levitating yet? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And because you can be, I say glass ceilings because you can see it now. It's not a secret anymore.
yeah,
You don't have to go through a guru to read up on high teachings, and because you see it, then you think you can reach it. And you
yeah,
can't,
yeah.
because of maybe your spiritual condition be,
And is it even
you,
meant to be that? Because it's such a big. When I say that, it's a big amount of whatever it could be, right? It could be an experience, it could be an amount of time. That it's one of those experiences that, and the problem is we put that our filter, which is the filter of whether how we perceive life, whether it's quantity or quality, onto
yeah, yeah,
spiritual learnings, which is not, I think, in my limited experience, is not how to go about it, right? Like you're like, okay, I spent 8 hours a day meditating. I'm going to attain nirvana. Like, I don't think it works that way, right? Because
yeah,
someone could do it for 1 minute and be in that place, and other persons can do it for lifetimes and not find it. But I don't know, I mean, in no way am I an expert either when it comes to these things, but there is a reason why these things are done, and why people in the past have created schools for learning when it comes to spirituality. And I think now with YouTube or whatever it may be, I'm not blaming YouTube alone, but
yeah,
someone's like,
right,
a 5 minute thing on like mindfulness. Okay, it's great. But the
yeah,
sad part is when you use a 5 minute video on mindfulness along with the ways we are living life now,
yeah,
I don't think it's a good combination. Like it's like the fast food culture, right? Like
yeah.
get rich quick kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like, my experience with this thing, just to kind of wrap up the story, and I'll move forward. This volatile state really, it got worse and worse, and eventually, like, I was back home in New York, and I had a real breakdown after a final meditation session with a preceptor.
Hmm.
And I realized at that point the meditation was bad for me because it got worse every time I meditated.
Oh wow! So
So
it did
yeah,
significantly, okay,
yeah,
have a connection. Okay, okay.
yeah. So after, and like, it was bad. Like, I would meditate and my nose is bleeding, and I'm like, oh, my heart is crying. It's just like really scary
Oh my
stuff.
God, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically I was in public. I went to it was like around New Year's 2008, a
Mm-hmm.
couple of days before, and I had a meditation session, and it made me feel like rattled, like my head is hollow or something,
Yeah.
and it was very cold, and I was wearing a thin coat because I thought I was, I could stay warm by sucking on lemons, like all this stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I realized after that meditation I'm really falling apart, so I like walked into a pizza place and I just started crying, and then eventually some EMS guy comes and takes me to the hospital. So,
Right.
and that was when I was diagnosed with the schizoaffective disorder. And then I was told to stop meditating.
Mm.
Um, and the medication they put me on made that Kundalini feeling go away. But I felt like in a fog
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
So, and then I
No,
went back to,
I said the word
yeah.
crazy, and I don't mean it in a bad or
No,
good
no, no,
way.
no.
It's
I
crazy
know.
that
Yeah.
people think that it's so euphoric and Kundalini is amazing. And I mean, I'm sure people are
Yeah.
experienced,
No,
but
no.
what I
Yeah.
mean by crazy is that it's crazy how something can, which is always like now, it's like if the moment you say Kundalini is bad, people are like, how can you say that? You don't know anything. But it's such an
Yeah.
uncontrolled power.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's what I meant by crazy, because I don't even
Yeah.
think, because
No, I know this actually segues really good into what I wanted to, our next part of the conversation. It was
yeah.
just, even things like yoga, this meditation, it's been culturally appropriated,
Mm,
in a sense, or at least it has this reputation, like, oh, do yoga and like you get in shape and you can help your anxiety and you can do this and that, like for many years, I don't, possibly even still for me now, I don't know, because I haven't tried. Yoga actually triggers feelings of uh
mm,
this stuff as well, because
yeah.
because if you get down to the basics of what yoga is designed to be a path to enlightenment. Am I right,
Um,
or
I'm going
what
to
is it?
again contribute to that with
Yeah,
my
yeah,
limited
okay.
knowledge. Um,
Yeah.
is yoga is basically the way yoga is perceived now is that it's a bunch of
Hmm.
physical exercises,
Right.
which it's not. I mean, it is, but it's
Right. Yeah.
also so much more. It
Hmm.
involves a way of life. It involves a way of mind. It involves a way of breathing, a way of perceiving. It's a way of basically looking at this existence and stripping away a lot of the stuff that we take in the modern day as normal, right? And the physical asana practice, which everyone now calls yoga, is just one point in the journey of yoga. And as you said, yeah, it is enlightenment. But what is enlightenment, right? Is
Right.
it not worrying about work, or is it not being stressed? I don't think any of that. I think that's so trivial, and we kind of,
Yeah.
as I said, we apply our filters of today's way of looking at the world onto something which is so much deeper,
Yeah.
and which is this thing. So yeah, you're right. And at the same time, I don't think anyone is wrong. And again, what happens, ego comes in the way. Like, no, what she said about yoga is totally rubbish, and what I said about yoga is right, which is
Yeah.
absolute
Well,
nonsense, right? Everyone's
yeah.
right and everyone's wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. And also like the idea that yoga is supposed to serve my purpose. Like I want yoga to do this for me. I want
Yeah,
this,
it's like praying,
Yeah.
right? I don't think it is as simple as I want my job to be better. I don't think that. I think that's very, and I think we are, and this is where the human folly, if you want to call it, right? We claim to be so intelligent because we scored so high on our SAT scores or whatever
Yeah,
stupid
right.
benchmark we set for ourselves. But this is the thing, and we think that, oh, we are the final answer when it comes to evolution, and we forget that there've been civilizations which are way more intelligent,
Yeah,
way
right.
more wise, that have come and gone, and we are at the sort of mercy of nature. And I think if we realize that, and if we adopt this sense of humility, I think the world just gets a lot more interesting and more beautiful to live in, when we accept that we're not the smartest.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
No, so yeah, so this thing of yoga you mentioned, it's there now, and I think in a country like India and the Indian subcontinent, when things go to the West and come back, we appreciate it a lot more. Like, oh yeah, there's this lady from New York who taught yoga. It's like, okay, no, I think it's great. Yoga, I do yoga, and I try to understand what I'm doing sometimes as well, and I talk to my person, Vishnu, who teaches me yoga, and we sometimes sit for an hour, and I'm like, oh God, people looking at us be like, we wasted an, and we've come to this place going, you know what? Even talking about what we're going through emotionally is yoga. It doesn't mean you have to stand on your head for 30 minutes. And that's a stupid thing, right? Like people you watch and you'll be like, you have to do 108 Surya Namaskaras. You have to do the tree pose for 30 minutes. So you have to like do warrior for none of it is set in any particular prescribed way. You don't have to do anything in it. If it doesn't suit you, don't do it. Like there are
Yeah.
some, if you stand on your head for too long, you are going to get some, if not immediately a neck issue, if that much blood running to your brain. And I'm sure you know this, and anyone knows it, that it's 30 minutes of an inverted pose is not healthy for anyone unless you're doing it for a certain purpose, right? It's like running a
Yeah.
marathon for 30 days straight. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think those are important things for people to realize, is that you don't have to do it as a challenge for Instagram, right? Like
Yeah. No.
it's so stupid that, and this is the obvious thing, that people are stupid, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're not able to understand that, and then they could complain going, I did it for an Instagram challenge, I don't have enough likes now. You don't like yourself, clearly, to start with.
Well, that's why I mentioned like this whole glass ceiling. Like, oh, just
Yeah.
because you can see it, that's, oh, I understand that.
Yeah, I think
You
understanding is
know,
such a, yeah.
yeah. And it's glass. You think you can reach it, but you really can't.
Yeah. No, so you are in a place right now, you're a lot better.
I am
I'm
a lot better.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm good to hear. And you're helping people, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, after I developed I call it schizophrenia, but it's really schizoaffective. Schizoaffective is essentially a combination of the schizophrenia symptoms, which is
Hmm.
essentially the delusions, the hallucination, paranoia, this sort of thing. In addition to the mood disorder, which for me is the bipolar, because have experienced mania. So it's kind of both.
Okay. Okay.
So after developing that, I had to leave college, and I tried returning to school after that to be a music teacher. That didn't work out because basically I kept relapsing, and to the point where in 2011 I was like, okay, I can't work. I'm going to go on disability. And that's a
Okay.
whole lifestyle where you're, basically on Medicaid, which is great. It's free health insurance, but
Uh-huh.
the government is, now you're getting your money from the government. So and that's a whole nother thing. But
I want to ask you a question on that. If it's
yeah,
too
sure.
personal,
No, 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 go
don't
ahead.
answer it. But when you're put on disability, when the
Hmm.
government is paying your bills and takes care of you,
Yeah,
so in their eyes, you're unwell, you're sick, right?
yeah.
Um, can you ever get out of that?
Well, you can always voluntarily get out, you
Okay,
know.
okay, okay.
Um, but no,
No,
I mean the
do you feel
reason why,
different? Do they treat you differently? Is what I meant. Like, do they keep
you know,
you? Yeah.
it's interesting. I would say for the majority of the United States, if you're on Medicaid, which is the free health insurance, your options are very limited. You know, most doctors in your area don't accept it.
Oh.
You're limited, you know, to certain places where only, I guess, poor people go, what have you.
Mm,
Hospitals, I think, generally take Medicaid, but your quality of care is going to be pretty low in most places. In New York, it's a very good place to be if you're on
okay.
Medicaid because
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay.
many doctors accept Medicaid insurance, including private doctors. The hospitals do as well, and there's just so many options to get good, you know, reputable health care.
Now, I find it
Um,
fascinating about America. Like, it's everyone looks to America, right? As the I don't know
mhm.
anymore, but slowly that things are changing there. But clearly, you can be American born, and whatever color you may be, you can still be a white or Asian or African American or
Mhm.
whatever the word is. And I
Yeah,
mean, you can be. I'm going to say white American or Caucasian
sure.
American,
Yeah.
and be a second class citizen in your own country because it's money that talks in America, not
Mm.
anything else. And I think, with this entire argument going on now with Black Lives Matter, and I think,
Mhm.
I'm not taking away, I don't go down that path, right?
No,
I'm
sure.
not
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
funding.
yeah.
I think like in any country, you'll be treated differently if you don't. And
Mhm.
it's so unfortunate, right? Like the country that we look up to around the world as the leader of the free world or whatever the fancy
Yeah,
terms.
yeah.
It's so unfair in some ways. And it's great in many ways as well. I've lived there, and I think it's a great country for some things.
Mhm.
But um, the fact that, okay, at least now you're being taken care of, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, how is it? Like, I'm just baffled, right? One part of society which is causing the problem, other part of society taking care of the problem. So
Yeah.
how is it for you now, every day when you deal with patients or with your clients or whatever the word you call them by,
Yeah.
reliving this? Because I'm sure you talk to people who have similar conditions.
Mhm.
Does it sort of bring it up for you, or does it help? Because I've heard that for some people, talking about it to others, or rather talking to others who have it, is therapeutic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't publicly, as a social worker currently working, I work telehealth. So I
Okay.
work, you know, the way we're talking now is how I meet with my clients,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. Um, Most of the people, I mean, pretty much everyone that I see has been going voluntarily. Like they have signed themselves up for therapy so that, you know, that's already one determinant of what the relationship is going to be like. Because you know you also have AOT, like assisted outpatient treatment, or you
Hmm.
have my previous job. I was working as a peer specialist at a
Okay.
housing agency in Queens, and it was scattered sites. So basically, people with SMI, so serious mental illness, disabilities,
Okay.
essentially bipolar,
Right.
schizophrenia, they're living in apartments in the community, and I'm visiting them at their homes. I'm taking them to the DMV and all this stuff, you know, case manager stuff.
Right. Right.
So you know, I'm just mentioning both because I'm comparing. So when I was working in public housing, you know, these are people that are, you know, very heavily medicated, so they're docile, and you know, they live in public housing, you know, and it's, for lack of a better term, it's kind of babysitting. You know, you're not really rehabilitating people so that they can move up in life because the
Yeah.
expectation is that they, you know, can't, or they're not intelligent enough. Some of them were, you
Yeah.
know, folks who participate in Special Olympics, this sort of thing. But the bar is very, very low, you know, and that's kind
So
of, if
it's
you,
not giving them a sense of dignity by just subduing them so they don't get up to mischief, right? Pretty much.
right, yeah, yeah. So, you know, and I was very kind to these folks. I mean, I worked with them for 6 years. They felt like family by the time I left,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
But
Um,
cognitively, besides their disorder, which is the mental health issues,
yeah,
cognitively they're fine. If they were treated, they could be no. I don't like the word normal, but they could be.
yeah.
They could manage
You
to
know,
pick themselves up.
yeah. that's what that's the expectation I held for them. And I think,
Right.
quote, realistically speaking, that, wasn't the case.
Okay.
But I feel like such an important part of treatment, or, worker client interaction, there's this very important element, which I feel really makes or breaks it, is unconditional positive regard, where you unconditionally believe in a person's capacity to really reach their full potential.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you have that expectation, or when you have that belief in a person's agency, I feel that that person is more likely to succeed.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
sounds encouraging. I mean, someone
Yeah.
would probably say that's not all, but I think it's nice to have faith that someone can do. I mean, maybe not to your expectations or my
Well, of course.
expectations,
Yeah.
but to their, just to hear it, right? I think it's just
Yeah.
kind to say, hey, come on, you can, another step. I think another day. I think it helps.
Yeah. Being a peer specialist, also, especially the training I completed at Howie the Harp Advocacy Center. I
Yeah.
did it in 2014. It's a really excellent training program
Okay.
in Harlem, like Manhattan, that trains people to become peers. That we learned about all these sorts of recovery oriented practices, which, really social workers are trained in college to adhere to. It's just the issue is that out in the field, social workers, I guess, become co-opted. They have to, oppress people in order to do their jobs and this sort
Yeah.
of thing. So, but with, for example, learning about person-centered planning, like a person really has the right to determine what they want for themselves as their goals. It's not my job to tell a person what their goals are,
Yeah.
So, and that leads again into, it's a whole bunch of terms I could throw out, but,
Yeah.
the idea that I think, okay, let me think, sorry, I was talking about my clients,
Yeah.
where they were very different from the people I see now. The people I see now, I guess, are, quote, more higher functioning. They have more independent lives in the sense that they
Okay.
have, responsibilities, families, jobs, this sort of thing.
So they're across the
And
spectrum of
yeah,
mental health illnesses, right? From anxiety to depression to,
yeah,
right. So you talk to various
yeah,
kinds of people. Okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel that my specialty is like adults who have serious mental illness, so bipolar 1, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, this sort of thing. But most of the people I see now are not really, quote, SMI. A few are,
Okay.
but mostly with telehealth, people come with depression, anxiety, a bit of, maybe bipolar in remission,
Right.
this sort of thing.
So,
Yeah.
not to sort of generalize, but
Mhm.
do you sense, I'm sure the lockdown has caused more people to be, because you mentioned two things, right? One is the work you're doing now, but the other thing is also this meditation, I mean, not meditation, but this experience with the guru, which triggered this for you. And I think the lockdown has made a lot of people confront who they really are. And do you sense, like, in your experience, like, what are some of the general things that are making people more anxious? I mean, is it environment? Is it the disappointment with life or lifestyle? So from, obviously I don't want you to divulge any information
No, of
about your
course, yeah.
clients, but what is sort of your sense being a practitioner? What is happening in the world right now?
Yeah. Well, I think workplace stress has been probably the biggest factor of how people's lives have become more stressful.
Okay.
Just how their work circumstances have changed. Schools in New York are, very much volatile based on, kids not wearing masks in school. And then they come out with, these ever changing mandates, like, there's this risk of being closed all the time. And then the kids are just so distracted. Even if they show up, they're not paying attention. No one's really learning, like I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
Also just people who work in offices, they're understaffed. So people are, working.
So it's more pressure, right?
Yeah. So then people are forced to work overtime. even if they don't want to, this sort of thing. Also, people working from home, trying to balance, responsibilities with parenting, when the kids need so much attention already because, maybe they have learning disabilities. So, and they're struggling with school, remote learning, all this stuff. And then that on top of work that is online, and it's I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like this pressure, it's this pressure to I mean, I wouldn't say succeed, but I think the emphasis is so much on the material, right? That
yeah,
it seems like this inability to match your material needs
hmm,
is causing more and more and more and more around
yeah,
the world. I mean, if you look at from my layman's point of view,
sure, yeah,
the more and more countries adopt this material pursuit and
hmm,
tells their people that you have to get a better job, better cars, better
hmm,
house, better
yeah.
lifestyle, the more and more of the sickness is spreading. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I wouldn't say that my clients are like greedy, money hungry people. Like
No,
these are
and that's the
people
that's the
trying,
part.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's the
yeah,
part. It's not, and it's not at all that you have to be greedy to do it. In fact, the people who are aware that
hmm,
they're in this situation are the ones who are
right.
experiencing
Well,
mental health issues. The ones who are
yeah,
oblivious are just like, yeah, I want more and more and more. I'll just keep going.
right.
Yeah,
I honestly feel like the people I see are the sane ones, and the people they talk about
and it's
are the
and
ones you
it's
have to
sad.
go around. And this is in
Yeah.
my own life too,
Yeah, the ones who
Yeah.
are in touch with what they're feeling and why they're feeling are the ones who are like, oh my God, I need to change something about the way
Yeah.
or the way in which I look at the way I'm living or the way I'm living itself.
Yeah.
The sad part, and the people who don't even know what's going on, they're not sad, or they're not anxious, they're not
Yeah.
depressed. They're just going about it like, um, you know, I wouldn't say robots, but I would say, like people who have been brainwashed to say, okay, this is the way you have to live. And I think the ones like, I mean, I experienced 4 or 5 years of, I mean, and still have anxiety to a large extent. Um, and sometimes you look out and you're going, why am I feeling this, right?
Hmm.
Why am I experiencing this? And then if you look at it going, it's kind of an indication of how to look at your life and how to change certain ways which are not good for you.
Yeah.
And if you actually say you're the lucky one, it's actually true, because most people don't even experience it. And maybe from when you're suffering from depression, you're going, oh,
Hmm.
but actually maybe it's a way to move on to the path that you're supposed to be on. And of course, I want to quickly say that I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't want to put my projections on anyone.
Hmm.
But it's sometimes people just are oblivious to what's around them,
Hmm.
and we
Yeah.
think that they're the lucky ones, but I don't think they are. you know.
Yeah.
But no, it's amazing with the work you're doing, Nisa. I think that after going through so much, it's very easy to just say, you know what, I'm fine now. I don't want to go anywhere near it. But I'm glad you're doing that, and I'm glad you're doing better,
Yeah.
and you're okay to talk about it. And I think quickly before we wind up, I want to just ask how your music is, and if people want to get in touch with you, if
Yeah, my music is going excellently. I have had a lot of awakening. Uh, Last year was rough for many of us.
yeah, yeah,
I had a few jobs. I had to leave. I Yeah. So basically, I became unemployed. I was laid off from a job in October
okay,
last year, which put me on unemployment, which
okay,
was great because I had been so stressed, and I also my medication was really not in a place. So I was actually hospitalized for 3.5 weeks in December, January, and that was great because actually my medication was lowered. I had
oh,
been
okay,
over
okay,
medicated very badly.
oh God, okay,
Yeah, so so it was lowered, and during this time of rest, also I got myself back, and I had some insights into my upbringing, my family circumstances, which really were it ripped my life apart, but at the same time, it gave me reassurance that like I'm not as crazy as I think. Things have
mm,
been hard for me. Basically looking at my life as a social worker. This sort of thing. The Yeah.
yeah. I think sometimes it's good to know that it's not all you, right? It's not
Yeah.
all on your head. I think it's
Yeah.
not all that you have, because you're made to feel sometimes that, oh, you were given everything and that you fucked it
Right.
up, right?
Yeah.
It's not the
Yeah.
case. I
No.
mean, so many things are social conditioning.
Absolutely.
So many things, I think, and this is something that helped me, is unlearning is such a big
Hmm.
help.
Yeah.
Saying this is not the way just because
Hmm.
it was told that this is the way, it doesn't mean that it is the way. You can undo it, unlearn it, and figure out a better way. Or maybe it's not a better way. Maybe it's another way of doing things which are better for
Right.
you. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Definitely. Also, just really absorbing the this concept of privilege, which is really become present after George Floyd's death. The
Hmm.
notion of privilege and how this idea of upward mobility for everybody in the United States as an opportunity, opportunity is not available to everybody. It still is. People are limited by where they were born into and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not describing it well at all right now, but
No, I
just
get
the
what you mean.
idea.
I think that
Yeah.
this whole American dream. I'm sitting here as an outsider. Maybe it's not the healthiest thing. Maybe
Yeah.
getting a mansion on Beverly Hills is not everyone's dream, and maybe
Right.
it's
Well,
not the ideal dream. Maybe,
yeah. Well, another thing, especially within social work, it's well recognized that not everybody has the opportunity to pursue that dream because
yeah,
of
yeah,
being born into a disadvantaged position, or poverty,
yeah.
and this is where race gets involved and this sort of thing. So
Yeah, but at the same time, when you're
evaluating.
force-fed that
Yeah.
dream, when you're in that situation, makes it even more depressing. Or the
Right.
word, yeah,
Right. Well, the issue is then that people are being criminalized,
yeah,
and are more likely to be criminalized because they're coming from a disadvantaged place, people of
yeah.
color, this sort of thing. So, I mean, I'm not a person of color. I mean, my father's, from Nepal, however you define it. But basically looking at my life through that lens of understanding privilege. And I realized music elevated the condition of my life. If I had not been a musician, I would not have gone to, as good schools.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have earned scholarship to go to a private school. I wouldn't have gotten, an excellent education in music, which
right.
helped me develop myself, personally as well. I'm well
Hmm.
spoken, or so it has been judged.
Hey, no,
Um,
you're awesome.
yeah, but music has elevated the condition of my life. The
Yeah.
sad thing was that once I developed the schizophrenia, I really could not play. So I didn't play
Okay.
at all really from 2008 until last year, and
Oh,
this
that's a
year
big break for
solidly.
someone.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. So like 13, 14 years. And what helped me was to reevaluate my upbringing, and be like, okay, this is where privilege, and I realized that I have been in circles with privileged people.
mm,
So, for example, my high school, my
yeah,
college, these are, very wealthy people who, don't have the same struggles as I do,
right.
and now I realize um, the feelings I've had like, oh, well, nobody likes me or I don't fit in. Well, I had a totally different life experience. How am I supposed to fit in with people who have different life experiences?
Yeah, yeah.
So the idea of oh, it's all in your head. It's not entirely,
It's
if you're
not entirely.
considering.
No, 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 not at
No,
all.
no, exactly. And and even with mental health, and there's this idea of person in environment.
Mm,
Essentially, a person is part of a community, is part of a system. And you have the family, you have the places that they interact with, like school, work, so forth. You have the community, the neighborhood, you have the country and its politics. We are all living in systems,
yeah,
essentially,
yeah,
and we interact with them, and systems also affect us. So if a law is passed that's infringing on my way of life,
yeah,
my reaction to that, which may be mental illness, is not my fault entirely. It has to do with the interaction I have with this system, which is oppressing me, and that can be on
yeah,
a very small level too, like a parent or something
yeah,
like this. It's like this kind of
yeah.
idea of a community, like it takes a village, and so
No,
that's
I
how
think also this. Yeah, I think there's so many moving parts, right? It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
media. Then there's so many
Mhm.
things. So, but no, it's good to know that you are better,
Yeah.
and it's good to know that you are helping people.
Hmm.
And good to know that you're back to your music.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm playing really well now. It's scary. It makes me realize that like if I had had that decent upbringing, not decent, more fortunate, I would have maybe had a more prestigious career. But
Hey, it's not too late.
life is,
I have
yeah,
hope that you're going to be the great concert
yeah.
viola player is on the SoapyRao show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I mean, my dream is to actually bring my mental health expertise in its various ways back into the music community, the classical music community.
Yeah.
This idea, because I feel that the pedagogical relationship between teacher and student, it's kind of in this old apprentice type style, where you're studying with a mentor who has experience, obviously as a musician, technically, expressively, performing wise, and also just the lifestyle in general. I do see parallels between that and the mental health relationship, both clinician and peer, clinician and client,
Yeah.
but also peer to peer with the mutual sense. So I have ideas. I want to really kind of deconstruct this relationship that mentors have with their students, and kind of update the profession. I do feel that there's a lot of unregulated teaching in terms of like, oh, you didn't practice, you're lazy,
Yeah.
it's kind of this like old school, like centuries old psychology, and there's not really any update to that sort of thing. It would be great to develop some sort of modality that music teachers could use to engage the students in a more healthy manner.
I'm sure you had the empathy and the understanding from helping people when you were the peer counselor. That unconditional encouragement. I think that'll be a great application to music and to students who are looking to learn but might not have the same skill level as someone else, or might not have the same time, or might not have the same background, where they might have to go back home to noise or to loud environments which are not healthy. So I think I really hope that you're able to do that. And thanks so much for sharing your story, for taking the time. And it's not been easy, I'm sure, but I mean, it's amazing that you're here today to talk about everything you've gone through, and the fact that you're helping people is amazing. So really appreciate it, Neesa. Thank you.
Yeah. I'd like to just finish by saying, with music, I feel like I finally found the reason to play. It's to keep the art alive. It's to keep the art alive, especially with classical music. There's waning interest. Certainly orchestras have been folding for at least the last 2-3 decades and this sort of thing. And it's really an art that has been passed down for centuries. And it's kind of like you see an epic movie and there's like, one monk like in the mountains who's keeping the martial art alive. And then the white hero goes in and like learns karate for 3 days and he's a master and he goes, you know what I mean? But it's just like, I feel like classical music is it's a discipline of that nature. Like we're keeping it alive through teaching it. Yeah. So that's the reason now I feel that to play. It's not to perform on a stage. It's not even to, it is uplifting people. That's one thing. But even deeper than that is keeping the art alive, keeping it alive.
Good on you.
Yeah.
all the best for your journey with music, and thanks for keeping it alive. And thanks for joining me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thanks. This is really enjoyable. Thank you so much.